I remember how every single night since I was a kid, my father handed me a simple but sacred duty: taking Milo, our scruffy cat, down to the basement so he could sleep in his little cat house. It was a routine so ingrained in me that I did it almost automatically. Place him in his corner, shut the door, and then head off to my room. But that night, something felt off. As I lay in bed, just on the edge of sleep, I heard Milo's meows, persistent and strangely insistent. I couldn't ignore it. I got up, my mind racing with worry that perhaps we'd forgotten to refill his food bowl. When I reached the basement, I found his bowl perfectly full. Yet instead of settling into his usual spot, Milo was frozen at the top of the stairs, his eyes fixed on the dark descent. I tried to coax him forward, but before I could get too close, he bolted back upstairs. Left with no choice, I let him sleep with me that night. I still remember how he curled up by my side, and somehow that small comfort eased my growing unease. I was half awake when a soft sound came from right beside my bed. Bleary-eyed, I opened my eyes to see the door of my room slowly creaking open. In the dim glow of my bedside lamp, I caught a glimpse of a tall, unmoving silhouette. For a moment, my heart pounded as I thought it might be my sister Rachel. I called out her name, and in response, the figure jerked back abruptly, disappearing down the hall in a flurry of motion and silence. I stared at the open door for what felt like an eternity before fatigue finally reclaimed me. The next morning was no less unsettling. My father scolded both my sister and me. He was convinced we'd left the basement door open. I insisted I had closed it properly, but he grumbled about wasted air conditioning and, as usual, hinted that Rachel's careless habits were to blame. That very night, I resolved to return Milo to his usual spot in the basement, this time making sure he had not only food, but plenty of water, given how stifling it could get down there. Just as I was about to drift off, a strange scraping sound reached my ears. It was as if tiny nails were clawing along metal, echoing through the ventilation ducts. Curiosity mingled with a creeping sense of dread, and I found myself rising to investigate. I followed the eerie noise down the hall, through the quiet of the ground floor, until I reached the basement door once more. I swung the door open, and in that instant, Milo darted out like a gust of wind, his pitiful meow slicing through the silence. That's when I noticed something that sent chills down my spine. His food bowl and water dish remained untouched, and the inside of the basement door was marked with deep scratches, as if something or someone had desperately tried to claw their way in. The next morning, I spoke with my parents, telling them I believed Milo was going through a rough time. He hadn't wanted to eat or drink, and on top of that, he had scratched up the basement door in a panic. When my father heard about the door, his face turned red with anger. He insisted that the damage would never be covered by insurance, especially if it was caused by an animal. He stormed off, grabbed Milo roughly, and without a word, threw him in the car. I knew better than to argue when my father was this upset. It only made things worse. Seeing Milo being taken away, my little sister started crying. I stood there, feeling my heart shatter, watching as my father's car disappeared down the road with Milo inside. With a heavy heart, I went down to the basement to clean out Milo's things. As I packed up his little bed and blankets, I felt a deep sadness wash over me, and that's when I heard it. A strange rhythmic sound from deep within, like a heavy labored breathing that shouldn't have been there. My pulse quickened as I followed the sound to an old dusty closet tucked away in a corner. With trembling hands, I pushed the door open and, in the wavering light, saw a human-like silhouette huddled in the darkness. It shifted ever so slightly, and in that frozen moment, terror gripped me. I didn't think twice. I sprinted back upstairs, slammed the basement door shut, and immediately called the police. When they arrived, they searched the house, but there was no sign of anyone. They found some empty chip bags and food wrappers stashed in the crawl space, but that was it. Whoever had been down there had escaped through the storm door at the back of the basement. The officer said it was probably a homeless person who'd snuck in looking for shelter. But I couldn't help but wonder how long they'd been living there and how much they'd seen. Since that night, we've kept the basement door locked, and Milo refuses to go near it. At first, my father insisted he belonged downstairs, but somehow Milo always found his way back, curling up in the warmest spot he could find.